Huh? Is that good? Can we do it for tomorrow night? So you
Yeah,
guys can put an
tomorrow
announcement
night.
or something.
How's 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Eastern?
Okay, let me just check with my time zone.
6 p.m. Eastern? I don't know. I'm just making up times, like whatever. What do you
No,
think's good,
whatever you
Gio?
guys are comfortable, but like because you guys, I mean, I'm in a different time zone. So, what would be the time that we would have more people? Let's do it on that time. I don't know. That would be what would.
Yeah, I think. I mean, generally, yeah. I mean, like what? I mean, I mean, Eastern time zone in the United States. Usually like midnight to 7 a.m. is usually going to. Well, sometimes it can be very active at that time, but not as common. So yeah, like I guess kind of like business hours. I guess like U.S. business hours or weekends. But I'm just saying, like if it's like 3 in the morning Eastern time, it probably would not be as active. But any other time that's more
3 in the
kind of.
morning. So you think three in the morning? Don't you think that's too late for people?
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying 3 in the morning would not be the best time. I'm saying so. Yeah, um,
Mhm.
like Jeremy just said, 8 p.m. Eastern. So
Yeah, 8 p.m. Eastern. Okay, let's do it. 8 p.m. Eastern.
what is that for you? I mean, we don't want to inconvenience you. Don't do it when it's 3 in the morning for you or anything. So I mean, whatever works for you. But if we let everyone know too, as long as it's an hour, good time, and people know about it. I guess you could say like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern, probably anywhere in there, in general.
Okay, good. So let me just drop that for you. I'll tell you chat box. How much this model is more accurate, and it's not that much different than the other model that we have because the plane is stationary and it's stable, it's flat. But what we did, we just polarized the model. So instead of having one pole, we would have two poles. And why we're doing this is because we need to just explain a lot of things in the southern world, like the counter rotation of the stars, the focal pendulum, a lot of things. So in that video that I made, I pointed these things out that the basically in this model we have the inertial celestial sphere that would cause things to go into this Coriolis effect thing that we have. So, and these two celestial spheres are actually two polar vortexes, one in the south, one in the north. The north is acknowledged by a lot of flat earthers. They call it the Polaris. But that's the first thing that I want to start talking about. That Polaris is not in the middle of that point in that toroidal field. It's even Polaris is just going around that point. So we don't need a shiny star in the middle of the toroidal field because this is another thing that I heard that flat earthers are arguing that why in the southern world, why in the southern point we don't have any star the way that we have Polaris in the north. So that's why it's nothing. So that's very crazy basically because our eyes cannot see the whole spectrum and you don't need a star in the middle of your toroidal field to make it real or to make it fancy. Like this is like a cartoon thing if you would have think like that. So so basically when you polarize this model, you're going to make this model to become like a living being. For example, if you look at a human heart, which is a living being, a human body, your brain, everything kind of has been polarized. Your heart has basically you have two counter rotation in your heart that causing this pumping, this sucking thing. It creates this energy flow when you have these two counter rotation in your heart. You have them. That would be on your bat and your dailies. So the same thing has to be addressed in your sky. It has to be find out in the nature. Okay, you have to find it out. Find it out. So that's the whole point. We're gonna start from the nature and the sacred geometry and how we have to find some of the things on the flat Earth model that it goes with the nature, but because this monopole AE map, it's something very unique. Like we don't you cannot find something like this. And a lot of people don't know how the toroidal field works. They think that they don't know about the counter rotation in any toroidal field. A human heart, a human brain, every magnetic field, which is a toroidal field, it will create a two counter vortex, and that is what we see in our sky. Exactly, we see the same thing in the sky. Two polar vortex, 2 points of energy. That's it. That's all it is. So it's just a flat stationary plane. It has two poles instead of one. So this will mix this model to explain the 24-hour sun on the southern world because it will be exactly symmetrical. The way that the sun would have moved on this map, in the north, it will be exactly the same way. On the south, it will be exactly look the same way. The sun would have do the same behavior, same motion, the both poles. 6 months on the south, 6 months on north, and two transverse movement that it will go from one pole to the other pole on the equinoxes. So again, some people have problem with this equinox thing. Some of them would have think that it would look like that Pac-Man game that the sun would have disappeared from one side and it appears from the other side. Well, it's not that. It will always go around either these two poles. So at the equinox, the sun will gradually shift to the south, and the March 20 and the 20th September 24, it will again gradually shifts to the north. So that it will create this anilema, and this is the only possible way that you can create your anilema. Like I don't know, like why this is taking so long for a lot of people to understand that the AE map cannot create its anilema. A lot of flat earthers would think that the anilema has a constant shape, which it doesn't have. A lot of people would think that the anilema of sun always have that fat, that lower, that fat lower lobe, and that smaller lobe on the upper part of the anilema. Well, it's not always like that. If you go on the equator, it will be exactly symmetrical. So these are so important. These are so fundamental things that I know that a lot of flat earthers they don't know about it. They don't understand that the day length are symmetrical respect to the equator. That's why you have this 24-hour sun, same way that you have in the north, you would have in the south, because everything is symmetrical respect to the equator. The same way that your face, your body is symmetrical respect to your spine, your third eye, and of course, you have two eyes, one on the left, one on the right, which will be your two polar vertex. So we're living inside something like a living being, which has two polar vortex, like a two counter rotation, like a human heart or like a human face or any living being. So this is very deep, and it takes a lot of literally people when they overlooked it, this is they just looked at the map, like this map that I have on my profile. They start asking questions about, well how you want to explain the flights from Sydney to San Diego and vice. Well, this is crazy because we're not cartographers. Now, this is what I always say to people, to flat earthers. This is this we're looking for a model. We're not looking for a map. An AE map or that azimuthal equidistant map or Gleason map or whatever, that is just a map that is not a model. A lot of flat earthers, they don't know that Gleason never spoke about the sun movement on that model, on that map. Never. He just did a survey on the land. He just sketched the lands. It was the flat earthers who started using this map and making a model for their flat earth model and saying that, okay, the sun will go in the Tropic of Cancer and then go in the Tropic of Capricorn, goes back and forth. Well, the thing that we all know. Yeah, of course, this is a hypocrisy. This is the thing that you can find in a Google store, in an Apple store. If you just find this flat earth map, flat earth application, you can easily, for free, you can download it. Well, so that's a hypocrisy. That's a control opposition, basically. This is the thing that is so important. And the Globers, they exactly touch upon this part, and they made that experiment to just, ridicule the flat earthers with it. Because they knew that the flat earthers were stupid and they not understanding that they have a symmetrical day length respect to the equator, and their whole reality is symmetrical to the equator. The focal pendulum, the hurricanes, everything is a respect, and it's going to opposite direction in respect to the equator. So yeah, it's going to be it has to be very slow, and this is going to be like a transfer from that model to this model by just polarizing it and just uh instead of looking at the toroidal field in such a way that the center is polaris, you're going to put the center on the equator and you're going to stretch it. You're going to put it on the ground. You're going to stretch it from east to west. It's going to be on the ground. That toroidal, that center of that toroidal field that people are looking for it. So it's the same toroidal field, but it's not going to be in the Polaris. It's going to be on the equator. And when you look at it from a different perspective, you're going to see that this toroidal field will create two counter rotation, and that is your sky. And this is 100% correct. And I don't know. I hope that before I die, people will, at least some people understand. So here's for your question. I'm sorry I spoke so much. Yes, a lot of my, my colleagues and some of my friends, yeah, they just conceded on this and they just working on it, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was following all that, and yeah, those are a lot of interesting points. Definitely that the polarity, like we have two eyes, two nostrils, two ears, left hand, right hand. The whole human body is symmetrical, all in all those ways. A man and a woman have a child. So you have the male, female, light and dark. I mean, of course, the correlations between that are endless. It's like built into nature, everywhere it seems in terms of that. So positive, negative. So yeah, that is definitely just compelling itself in terms of how the sky and having those two poles. And then I do hear you what you were saying about the Sigma Octantis. I mean, they do claim that there's a star there, but it's just very very dim. But yeah, that point as well. And yeah, it's like these are called like an azimuthal equal area type of projection where it projects it in equal fashion from the equator in this case.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So you probably have a very dim star at the southern pole, and even Polaris. Polaris is not the middle, is not exactly in the center. And by the way, Polaris and there's some other two stars close to Polaris, which they're called Polaris A, B, C, something like that. I didn't know that. Like those stars are pretty close to Polaris, and they're just making a rotation around each other, and they all go around that pivot or that center. So, and here's
Yeah,
the
they
thing: a
say
lot of flat
Polaris.
earthers. Sorry.
Sorry, they say Polaris is 3 stars. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But here's the thing, bro. Look, Jeremy, the people flat earthers would have figured out, well, Polaris they worship it. Yeah, I can see that. And they don't understand this bias that they have been made in themselves by worshiping something in the middle. Like, and they bring up this Freemason video. Probably you guys have seen that Freemason video that he explained that, the black sun and the earth and, the Polaris is in the middle. Well, no, Polaris is not in the fucking middle. The middle is the equator. The middle is where you have those satellites and everything in that, because that is your equilibrium point, and that's where you can handle things over there. That's where your zodiac signs are. So don't make Polaris like a god thing, and this is so dangerous. Like they don't flat earthers. These are things that we need to cure in them, like because they're just acting like globers, like how they worship the sun, that everything around something. So they flat earthers, from my perspective, because I'm a very old flat earther. I probably guys know I did masters in engineering in uh, aerospace back in 2012 in England, and then and it was in those times that I turned into flat Earth. So I'm just seeing this growth of flat earthers, and I can see their weaknesses, and I can see how they're just changing. So I can see that they have they have married to this Polaris thing. And no matter how much you try to tell them that Polaris is not the middle, there's nothing so special about Polaris. Polaris is sorry, it's just another fucking star, like in the sky, like the other stars. That's it. And the energy points, the center of the energy of torredial field does not need a star. It doesn't need to glow. It doesn't need to, it might glow, but it's not going to be visible to your eyes. And this is the thing that, again, flat earthers, since they're not very educated, they don't understand these things, that you can only see a very small bandwidth of the electromagnetic spectrum. So it might glow, even at the southern point, it might glow, but we cannot see it. So there's a lot of things that they're just looking at subjectively. They think that it's just because, and they come up with this weird thing of the explanation of this magical dome on the southern part of the world that creates that, that 24-hour sun. A lot of flat earthers still like that, think like that. That, each person, no matter if an individual goes close to the it will have its own personal dome, and it will see its own southern star and its own sun over there, which is ridiculous. It's not true. That is the Walter Bisler model, I guess, and then Shane's developed that. It's completely wrong. Shane's model is true, but before the observer reaches the edge of the model, before it reaches the edge of the model, everything is exactly true. It's in the Shane's model. Probably you have seen that model. It's the AE map basically. But once the observer goes to the edge, it's not going to be aligned with the reality. We have a fixed point in the south. It's not a subjective point. It's not an arbitrary point. It's not a individual, subjectively personal sphere dome point. It's just a certain fixed point, like the north, but this one is in the south. So you need to just give that point some respect. The same way that you give respect to the Polaris, you have to give respect to that southern point as well. And if you start doing that, you're going to see you're living in a symmetrical flat Earth model. So I think 8 p.m. is good for tomorrow in Geo. Yeah, I just checked it right now. It's good. We can talk about for an hour or something, and we can answer some questions.
You want to do 8 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night?
Yeah, okay, let's do it. I'll make some images, see how it works. Some people.
All right. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I can make the event, and then if I can just make a title, but if you have a title or a picture, an image for the event or anything like that, if you want to just send that in a message, that way we can send it out to everyone, and then everyone can see. Basically, if you want to do like a image, title, and then a description. If you don't do that, that's okay. I can just put it in, pencil, put it in. I'll just put it.
We can put it the two-point flat Earth model. I think this is a good title because it just hits the point. Or you can say polarizing the AE map, but I think the two-pole flat Earth model is a good name. But I don't like this name basically because everything is two-pole, right? But the reason I'm just saying this is because we have to emphasize on this part of this model. But if it would have been like 50 years from now on, like if we were living in 50 years in the future, people would have probably they already knew that everything is in two poles, and probably they were talking about something else. But right now we need to tell people that it's the polarity. It's a two-pole flat Earth. Yeah. So I think two-pole flat Earth model is a good title, and for the image, I'm not going to use this image. This is not a good image because we're not talking about the maps. And we're not going to talk about the flight path and why it goes from this and that's bullshit. That's not our job. And basically, flight path, if they're not, we don't know how they're setting these flight path. It's based on a lot of different factors that we don't know. A lot of geopolitical factors, economical factors. We don't know about them. We cannot start making our world using these ridiculous flight paths. And that's it. So we're not going to talk about the map, about the land masses, the continents, which one is bigger, which one. That's it. We just want to, as long as we know it's flat and stationary, it's enough. And then we're going to focus on the sky and the movement of these vortexes. So two-pole flat Earth model is a good title, and the picture, I will drop it for you. Let me just find a good picture for it. We'll do it. Yeah, that would be good. Thanks. Okay.
Yeah, it sounds good. Yeah, it's a lot of good points because the way that the stars move and how this all links together. I was gonna post an image in the live stream one text chat. If you're able to see it, I just tagged you in it as well. I was gonna bring this up before, but it's just a basic. It shows a sphere, and then it shows when you project a sphere on an azimuthal plane underneath it. It shows what that looks like, and then it has the stereo. Then it has the stereographic projection on that vertical wall. So it's just kind of interesting, there you have the AE map, you got the globe, and you got the sky. So it's like, how do all those fit together? What's what? Obviously the globers are going to say what they say. We know the sky looks like the stereographic projection, that vertical, the two poles and the straight line at the equator. And then obviously folks talk about the globe and the AE map. So it's just interesting that a sphere, it's like projecting it on, planar, projecting the coordinates of a sphere onto a plane from the north-south axis, which is the azimuthal, or from the east-west, which you get that stereographic projection. So
the stereographic is more complete. Now, I want you to ask that's a very, very great picture that you brought up. You're just hitting the point. Like this is exactly what you're looking at this toroidal field from two perspectives. Like you project it on two walls, one on the bottom, the other one inside. The AE map is on the down and the stereographic is on the right. Exactly. So this is it. As you can see, the stereographic model is more completed because it has the both poles and the both skies basically on that globe. But the AE, if you look at the AE projection on that down there, it almost have left half of the sphere. It doesn't show anything about the half of the sphere or the sky above that sphere, basically. So this is a very, very like I wanted to bring this picture for your people up there to just exactly tell them that how are you going to look differently. So you're not going to make a lot of difference. You're not making a new model. This is the point. You're just going to looking at it from a different perspective. That's it. In order to see the both poles of the sphere model on your flat plane, and you can by doing that, you can just explain your 24-hour sun, your focal pendulum, the rest of the things like the counter rotation of the stars and everything. And let me tell you the bottom line. The stereographic type is the fabric of the space-time above the flat Earth that we have. And we don't know it's a domey shape. This is the thing we don't know about it. Our eyes, this is our personal sphere that we always think that we're in a sphere. But we know that once we get close to any star, it will start to go up. So who knows that it's a sphere or it's just a flat plane? We don't know yet. So it will look exactly like the stereographic 2D plane over there, and this is beautiful, basically. Yeah, I love this. Really love this. Yeah. It's over. Like you guys are getting it. Like you're just looking at this flat Earth from a different perspective. That's it. There's no debate because people. There's a lot of flat earthers. They attack me. Yo, bro, you're a control opposition. You don't know what you're talking about. The sun goes. The sun. No, but when you go looking through it, you see that you're not making a lot of changes. You're just looking at it from a different perspective, and you're gonna sort out a lot of things on it.
Yeah, because the sky definitely. I mean, maybe some people could try to deny that the sky does the two rotations, but it's pretty hard to deny. I mean, you can be right at the equator. You can see 50-50, the one in the north and south. You go north or south, you're going to see those rotations. It's pretty clear. So whatever the land is, it's laid out with under those stars. So you have the two poles. So whatever the land laid out is, that's however that's laid out, it's under those stars basically. So just on a basic level. So that's the question though, is how the land is laid out. And I think a lot of people with this model, like what about the east-west circumnavigation, because when you lay the land out like that under the two poles, the way the globe claims, if you went west from South America, you then show up over in Australia. I think that's the part that maybe to reconcile that, how the land would lay out with the two poles. But yeah, I mean the two poles are just observable reality. You could see that,
Yeah, that's the point. Exactly. That's why I told you that the map is like, I don't know about the map because that's the problem. This is a very approximation, in terms of cartography. It's not a real thing. It's just trying to show you that how it's been divided in two sections, up and down. That's it. And it's not accurate. That's why I'm not going to bring this picture up. I'm going to bring something else that is just a flat plane and there's some land masses over it. That's it. It's a flat plane and there's some mountains, there's some jungles over there, some woods, oceans, and it's flat, it's stationary. It might have walls. And here's the interesting part of this model. You can have still walls around it. It's possible to have those walls. You can have other toroidal fields next to it. Right? You can believe in the cosmic egg theory that it's just a one single creation, like a one single body that we are. So as you said, it's 50-50. So your body is 50. Your whole body is 50-50. Your brain is 50-50. Your heart is 50-50. Right, left, counter rotation, clockwise, counterclockwise. In the middle, it's the middle of that toroidal field. So that you're almost seeing the same thing in the sky. But the ground, like why the flights go like this and all that, as I told you, we don't know. Like we know there's a lot of prohibited areas that we cannot fly over them. There's a lot of restrictions, the Antarctica Treaty.
One thing we do know, we need more walls. We gotta have walls on any flat Earth map.
Why you want to bring the walls? I'm not against it, but why we have to all say that there's a wall around us?
I think he's just making
because of the nature of gas pressure. That's why.
Oh well, but I think he's talking about like an ice wall type thing, or some kind of a barrier around the whole realm, around the whole plane. I think he's more referring to.
Yeah, we could talk about barrier. That's the crucial point of any model. That unfortunately, we don't know that it's the land or it's just you're going to be stopped by something invisible, like the world gets end or something, or it's a wall. But if you look at the Asian maps, like there's a map called Donald Ramsey, yeah, Ronald Ramsey, I guess. This is a very famous map. It goes back to 500 years ago. It's an AE map, and if you look at that map, the whole ice wall, it's a green area. It has mammals, it has warm animals. You can see woods and jungles. So even in the Eastern mythology, if you look at some of these poetry, they talking about they don't talk about ice walls basically. Like ice wall is a very new thing that it has been grown in the flat Earth communities within the last 1 decade or 2 decade. Like before that, I don't think that we have any evidence that it supports, not a biblical evidence or like nothing that supports the ice wall. But the barrier, it's yeah. But here's the thing: people would think that it's an ice wall. It is a gigantic ice wall that it's not possible to cross. Well, I think that's a stereotype. It's not very real.
Well, it goes with that AE projection because once you do an azimuthal equidistant and you center it at the North Pole, Antarctica ends up wrapping all the way around the outside. So that's, I guess, where, and then the Gleasons and all of that. So it's sort of a consequence of that type of projection. Whereas if you do an azimuthal equal area and you project it from the equator, then it makes the Pacific Ocean a ring around the outside. What it essentially does, which is interesting because when you look at the globe, if you pull it up on Google Maps, half of the globe is blue water. You can turn the globe in their model to where half of it is the entire Pacific Ocean. There's almost no land, so it's interesting the idea of wrapping which means the Pacific Ocean is massive. It takes up half of their globe. So it's pretty interesting if you do the azimuthal equal area projection from the equator, it makes the Pacific that massive, essentially ring around all the continents, which is interesting to say the least. That in their globe model, they have to put half of the whole model is the blue ocean of the Pacific, half of the ball.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. That was a very good point. Yeah, but that's a consequence of the projection, basically. Exactly. They will end up with that, that perimeter around your whole land masses. Yeah, you will end up with that. Yeah. So, as I said, like projections, surveying, the cartography. These are not like this is not our job. Like we're flat. We need to look for the model. Like we need to look into much more bigger scale, not looking through how the land masses are are next to each other. Which one is bigger? Like I don't think that's very necessary. Literally, it's not important. It's like it's like you start counting the stars in the sky. It doesn't have any value, scientific value. So just studying about how the land masses are next to each other, I don't think it's necessary for us. For us, is the sky is so important. The fabric of why the focal pendulum goes clockwise and counterclockwise. Well, this is so important. This is something that flat earthers are so easily they overlook. They just overlook on it because they don't have a good explanation. They never had a good explanation. So it's instead of running away from these questions, it's better to focus on these problems. That's it. So yeah, maps are not. It's not my interest, to be honest. Like,
Well, yeah, and the thing about the plane flights as well. Well, yeah, the map is a very huge piece because to be able to be a cartographer or to get the map layout, all the distances of the continents and all that. I mean, that's what they're hiding from us ultimately, to a degree. So, in terms of the globe model and all of that, so yeah, getting the exact map is a huge project. It would take millions of dollars and years to do it independently. So yeah, that's a huge question in and of itself, or just the exact specifics of it, because the difference of what they'd have to do to turn it into a globe versus planar is something that would take a lot of work to kind of validate that. And then I was just going to say too, with the plane routes, I mean, there already is going to be a deception with the plane routes, just being the fact that they're selling it as a globe. So, like, I just want to make a comment on that from earlier as well, because if there's already a deception there, then trying to use the end result of what information we have and not being able to see what's behind, what they're actually, the coordinate systems and how they're actually calculating all of that. It's going to be one of those things that's difficult to validate unless we fly ourselves and validate it, from that angle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But if you put the Pacific Ocean as the outer ring, does that mean that if you went across the Pacific, you'd be making a circle around all the landmasses?
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you get into those magnetic declination, issues in the south as well. So, or just magnetic declination in general as to how that would play into that. But yeah, just
so yeah, exactly. The magnetic fields and the magnetic declination, they're different things than these surrounding oceans around us. But, that's the problem that, the other map that we had, the whole surrounding, the whole water that was surrounded, that was considered as our negative pole of the magnetic field. Well, that's like, you cannot find anything like this in the reality. Never. So yeah, it was the same thing. The magnetic pole, the ice walls, the perimeter, everything was the same thing on the AE. It's on the AE map. They're all the same thing. But a two-pole flat Earth model, they're different. They're separated. The pole, these two fixed points in the sky, they have a corresponding fixed points on the ground, vertically down, perpendicularly. If you come down from those, coming down all the way to the ground from those two centers, you're gonna have your center on the ground. You have those two centers on the ground as well, and they're fixed points on the ground. So that's a different thing than the those oceans, the Pacific, the ice walls. Like, that's and this is the thing that I'm trying to say. Like, we need to just discern these things from each other. Like, it's very good just trying to study each them one by one. Okay, this is the pole, this is the magnetic field. Now we want to talk about the ice walls, the surroundings. Well, that's a different thing. Well, that's more like controlling the 2D plane, right? Like, like the ice walls and those things. But when you're talking about, the fixed points, you're talking about the magnetic field of the Earth and basically the whole, origin of our reality. So it's more deeper than, just looking at this thing as a map. So flat Earth map is very stupid. It's a flat Earth model, basically. And Gleason is just a map, and they don't understand flat Earth. They think that Gleason is just a map. It's just a projection. It's not a model. It's not the globe model. The globe model is a real. It's the map. It's a model as well, because it explains everything on it. It explains the movement of the stars, the celestial bodies, everything. But the Gleason, he never spoke about these things. Never. That the sun goes around this and comes around that. Then this is so important.
Yeah, I don't think. Well, it does mention in the lower right-hand corner. It mentions that there's no light beyond 80 degrees south. So it does mention that, and it mentions the sun's, I think, movement through the equinoxes. But yeah, it does. It's not really a full model. You're right. It's sort of more of a map projection with sort of a general layout of the sun moving, and then claiming that there's no light past 80 degrees south. Which is. I mean, do you think that whole Gleason's map is it's like just like a co-opt, or like a controlled, purposeful deception as like a backup to the globe model?
No, never. Why you get it like that? Never. Like, Gleason, he did a great job, because his map is so accurate when it comes above the equator. His map is exactly the same map. The astronomical clocks, astrolabes, they're all based on this map. And we need to give a lot of credit to this map. But it's just a map, and it's a map that is very accurate when it comes to the northern world, to the above the equator, basically the size of the continents, everything. It pretty much fits good. I agree with that. But we need to understand that throughout the history, humans, like in 90% of the equations, 90% of the time, people were they lived above the equator. So their perceptions, their understanding was like the North Pole is in the middle. And just putting the North Pole in the middle and making such a map like Gleason map, it would have worked perfectly for any individual who's living above the equator. I agree with this. And this is true. But we need to understand that we're living in a modern era, and we know that the southern world exists. We know people in Australia live. We know we have connection with those people. We know that it's like things are different. And look, so you can just say that okay, probably people weren't knew about these things, like there's a southern world and all that. Because the scholars, because I'm personally, I have an astrolabe, and I teach how people to use astrolabe. And astronomical clocks is another thing that I always bring up for any Globers to tell them that how the geocentric model works. I always bring up this astronomical clock, which is in Prague, in Czech Republic. Probably you guys have seen that very big one. Then it's like a clock tower, but it's an astronomical clock. It has all those hands, and it's completely accurate, completely accurate. But that's a clock. It's not a map. First of all, it just gives you a very exact location of the sun on the constellations, the date and the time, the moon phases. But that it's more for the people who live above the equator. Now, if you would have if these scholars who made the astro clocks, if they would have lived below the equator, they would have made the same thing. It would have looked the same thing. But instead of having the North Pole in the middle, they would have the South Pole in the middle, and people wouldn't even understand it. It would have looked the same thing. So that's what I'm telling you. It's a symmetrical reality. If you go in the south, you have to make if you make an astronomical clock, it would be like you're making around the southern world, and then your sun would have exactly looked the same way if you would have looked in the north and looking at the astronomical clock, which was made in the north. So they're gonna both look the same way. So that's it. So all I'm trying to say is that just because throughout the history, like 90% of the time, we all lived, our ancestors and all scholars, they all lived above the equator. We always thought that okay, they choose the Polaris as the center. But if you go in the south, you can make another astronomical clock, and you can use the southern point, and you can make it very, very precise astronomical clock. And the design is going to be the same. Everything's going to be the same. Nothing. So it's just you're just flipping the clock from from up to down. Some people do. That's all it is. That's all it is. It's symmetrical. There's no difference. So what we're trying to say here is that it just address this symmetrical. Just acknowledge that this symmetrical exists. Now, just looking into one of the symmetries, yeah, you're going to get a lot of information. You're going to get a good approximation. Look the AE map or the Gleason map. Now, if you want to move on to south, you cannot use the AE map. It won't. It's not going to be accurate. I'm pretty sure about it. It's not going to be accurate anymore. You would have need another AE map, which has been projected on the south, and that will work perfectly for the southern world. So you will basically need two of these projections, basically, if you want to do good circumnavigation. Now, if you would have used both the circumnavigation, one in the south and one in the north, depends on where you at, you're gonna have a very good answers for Globers, because Globers have the both things, and their tropics are symmetrical. It's not gonna be like the tropics not gonna become bigger and bigger as they go to south. Really, that's the thing. That's a problem that the AE map and the Globers always bring this critic that your tropics are becoming very big, big, big. Well, we know, so they're right. They're pretty right about it. So what we did here, we just made another concentric circles on the south, and some bunch of other concentric circles in the north, and we're gonna have these two things in our ground, and we're gonna use depends on where we at, we're gonna use that projection, either in north or south. And it will give us a precise location and everything. I don't know if I made my point or not, but these things are so important. I don't know, like it's like I can see that people are so biased to Polaris. Like even when I personally I teach astronomical clocks, but after I have to tell them that okay, everything goes around this, and at the end, the bottom line, I have to tell them okay, this is just for the northern world. Now, if we go in the south, it's going to be the same thing, but it's I don't know how to say it, but it's not always go around the Polaris. you're gonna have a good approximation by just setting your clock to go around Polaris in the north. It won't make any difference. But this is not the reality. How the reality works. The reality works in the polarized form. But if you look at in one pole, you still gonna get good information and good accuracy.
So just one thing that people often ask about this layout is like the Pac-Man, whether you would have to teleport from one side to the other. So you not incorporate that, or do you think that that does happen?
No. We're gonna incorporate that. We never incorporate. That's stupid. Exactly. As I said, it's gonna be like a very very slow, gradual shift from south to north. And if you want to understand it, how probably you have seen those star trails on the equator. There's a very. Let me just put it on my profile. Let me just find my phone. If you look at the star trails, right, on the equator, right, you can see they're symmetrical, right? You have a bunch of star trails going on the south, a bunch of star trails going on the north. Now you need to understand that the sun. Now this is going to be an approximation. The sun would have taken like those concentric circles, those star trails that you see. Those are going to be the path of suns. Those are your tropics. Those are your those are that's the space-time curvature, or those are the sun tracks. So every day sun would have go over one of those lines, and as we move to the equinoxes, the sun will start choosing those star trails on those paths that are more close to the equator. So you're going to have a gradual move from south to north. It's not going to be a sudden disappearance or sudden movement or sudden, you know, inclination toward the south or declination toward the north. It's going to be a gradual shift from north to south. Now, in the video that I provided, what I did, I used Stellarium. You can put the equator. You can do it by yourself. Put the observer on the equator and look exactly at your top. So the observer on the equator is looking exactly at the top. So the right would be east, and his left will be the west. Now, if you start just moving the cursor of time, you're going to see that the sun. Now, and if you put the time on the equinox, like if you put it 20th of March or something like that, 19th of, put it on the 18th of March. If you start going from 18 to 19 and 20, you're going to see the sun will start moving from the, it will start making some bigger circles. And at the equinox, instead of making a very big circle around the south, it will start making a very big circle on the north. So at the equinox, one day before the equinox, one day after the equinox, those 2 dates, you're going to have two very big circles of sun. And at the equinox, the sun, instead of taking that very big circle on the north, on that day, it will move to that very big circle on the south. And it's going to be very, very gradual and smooth. How do we know that? Look at the star trails. Let me just put the star trails as well. This is so important. And basically tomorrow, we need to talk about this. So, this is a good one. So the Pac-Man thing is kind of a thing that, made a lot of people want to think about this model. They think that, the sun, goes to the west and just disappears and and it appears from east, and no, it's not that. It's not that. Not at all.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying about the two, or about the sun transitioning from the south to the north rotation. So yeah, I understand what you mean. I'm posting this in the chat real quick. It's just this azimuthal equal area projection. So I understand what you're saying about those two rotations. I think I even made one, or I just threw some circles on it at one point. This one here, I just threw the kind of two circular sun. I mean, those are not accurate, but I just threw them on there.
Exactly. I'm going to do, yeah, exactly. That's a good one. That's a good. Now, what you need here, you need to just draw some more lines in between these two circles. More lines.
Yeah.
And
I just threw those on there.
Yeah, and they don't need to go like they don't need to come back or like come back. You know, like they don't turn around and come back again. They don't look like that. They just can converge and diverge. So you would have some diverge. So, and these are your star trails. If you look at if you stand on the equator, if you look at the sky, you're going to see the same pattern. So what you have right now on your profile is exactly the same pattern that you see in the sky on the equator. Right? So that's the thing. So you brought this up exactly. So let me just bring this one as well.
What about like east and west circumnavigation on the ground though? Like when you're on the ground, east west. Like you would just
and
go.
this is the model. This is the only model that you have east and west. I just dropped it right now for you. This is the model. On the right is the east, and the west is the left. And this is the only model, basically, Geo, that you have this westward movement. Look, this and before, like tomorrow night, I will start from this. The first principle, the first fundamental thing, that there's a westward bias movement. That this is the reason that we'll always see the sun rises from east to west. Star trails move from east to west. It's a westward movement that we have in our sky. And you have these two vortices in this westward water. So the westward water is like that river, is the cosmos water. We call it the water of cosmos. The flow. Some people call it the flow. I don't know. Yeah, what you can just understand what is the concept. Like we can see the movement of this cosmos water, and within this cosmos water, we have this toroidal field that is creating these two counter rotations. And this is exactly how you can make a firmament. Because later, what I'm going to do that, like, it's not possible to do it in one session. Because every step, there's a lot of things to talk about it. But later, I will tell you that how it's possible that if you would have a synchronous source in a river, you can make a shield, the same way that we have been shielded from the outer space. And this is what the religious people were talking about right now. Like, the water separated from the water, the God made the firmaments and separated the water. So how you want to separate the water? You need to separate the water by making these two gigantic vortexes, basically, and you're seeing them in the sky, and they're sealing you. They're sealing you from the water above. See? So yes, and so west is your right, west is your left, east is your right, north is up, the south is down, and you can if you see I just drew it for you guys. You can see it's westward, and if you look at the video, I have missed the letters here. You have the E letter in the right and the W letter in the left, north, and an S up and down. And and you have all your directions here.
So what would happen
if you would have noticed, go on.
Well, just real quick, what would happen if you went west on the equator and you kept going on the equator, kept going west? What would happen? Would you?
You will hit your ice wall, if you wish.
So there is like some sort of shoreline around the whole thing. So you would not be able to you
Yeah.
would not be able to circumnavigate east to west, staying on the equator in this.
No. If you go directly now, your east and west. Don't forget, you're a flat earther. When you talk about east and west, you're going to circumnavigate around your Polaris always, right? But this thing that you ask me, you're not circumnavigating anymore. You're just telling me I just want to get out of the area. Like this is like the AE map. In the AE map, no matter where you start going toward the south, you will hit the wall, right? That was the thing. So here's the same thing. If you circumnavigate, you're always going to circle. Do you agree with that, Gio, or not? Did you get the point? If you always do the circumnavigation, you always be perpendicular to your compass. So your compass is going to always direct to either of these poles, right? And you're always going to go perpendicular to your compass. So it means that you're circumnavigating. So it means that you're going to make those circles. You know this. This is going to be the same thing on the AE. Even the AE was like that. In the AE map, we had this. No difference. So try not to make it different than the other model that we have, because a lot of things are the same thing. Do you agree with that? A lot of things are the same thing, except this thing.
I guess if you're north or south of the equator, you would circumnavigate on the longitude or latitude lines, essentially in circles.
Yeah.
But I was just saying on the actual equator itself. If you were on the actual equator.
But you're not circumnavigating anymore. No, because because I told you you're going to hit the walls, and then you asked me another question. You said, okay, so you're saying that if I circumnavigate, I'm not going to make it around. You're not saying that was your mistake. You're not circumnavigating anymore. Yeah, if you can just go along the equator, but you're not circumnavigating anymore. You're gonna go out of the world. I don't know, out of the simulation, whatever people talk about. So that's it. I don't know about the walls, but personally, I have my own ideas. But I'm going to share it right now because I'm not sure about it. But I think it's a one thing. I don't think like we cannot go out. It's an encapsulated thing. I think it's like the cosmic egg. It's real, like living in an egg, like an apple. Because later I will explain that how this is like an apple, right? I will bring up the apple and I will show the cross sections of the apple. And if you look at the cross sections, you're going to see the two lobes. You're going to see two seeds sitting in two lobes. In the middle of that apple is going to be the stick of that apple, which is your equator. It all fits. It's all completed. So, but the question that you brought up, that's the main question that people usually ask. That this transition. So yeah, that's that transition part. It's the in the video I've shown it that how it smoothly, gradually, it will pick up big circles. So as I said, if you look at the star trails, you can look at the star trails of the sun path every day. Don't you agree? The star trails would have been like the sun path in our mod in the flat Earth. Even the AE map, it was like that. So so the sun, look at the star trails and see how they're so close to each other. And the equator, if you look at it, they're so tight. So sun will tightly start picking those, those concentric circles, those star trails, very, very gradually and smoothly, and it will make its equinox. It will make its transverse movement to the south. Very, very smooth. So the sun dances, or the sun will oscillate. And this is the thing. But the oscillations, the period of this oscillation is so long that we don't feel it, or we don't. It doesn't give us that feeling of oscillation, but it's an oscillation. It takes 365 days. Sun will oscillate on these two poles, like a swing of a pendulum. So, so that's it. So let's stop here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop a image for you for tomorrow night. You can just put it there, and then we can break this down for tomorrow night.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, we can go over it in more detail, and people can ask questions. And that sounds good. Yeah, I'll add the image to it, and I'll send you a DM with the event on it, and then you can share that with others as well, and we'll let everyone know.
Yeah, exactly. That would be good. Okay, so I'm going to leave right now. I'm going to drop the image for you that put it for your title, and the title, I think Two-Pole Flat Earth Model is a good title. And so it's going to be 8 p.m. for tomorrow night, and we can talk about it, okay?
All right. Yeah, sounds good, man. Looking forward to it.
Okay, we're cool. Okay, see you guys.
All right. Yeah, cheers.
More attempts to basically cope. It still doesn't really solve like the actual terrain issue, though. It's just more attempts to basically cope with the flat nature and then the impossible orientation you have with the known land masses, and it's gonna remain an issue. The only way to actually be able to sort of fix it is by accepting spatial nonlinearity being a factual thing. That's the only way that I can know.